Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us and welcome to Addressing Misconfiguration and Compliance within FinTech. I'm your host, Aaron Ansari from Trend Micro. I'm glad to welcome you and hope you're all having a good afternoon/morning, depending on which time zone you're in. Hopefully you're all safe and you're all well. We've got a good one for you today, and one in which we're excited about. We have two people that are very well versed in FinTech, in compliance, in cloud, versed by way of certifications, versed by way of relationships with customers, as well as activism in the community. So really excited to have this group together with you today. Hopefully you get value out of this. We've got a couple of batons that we're going to be passing back and forth from a presentation standpoint to one another. But please follow along. Please listen well and ask questions and have discussions as we have going on in the chat as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our two speakers. We've got Stacy Tucker. Stacy is the Security and Compliance Public Sector Practice Lead at Connect. Connect's a great partner with Trend Micro, someone with whom we've been working quite frequently from a services as well as a best practice standpoint for our customer. Tracy leads the cross-functional expert team that specializes in cloud and security. And today you're going to kind of see the governance, risk, and compliance work that he and his team do for states, federal, local sort of government, nonprofit, and even kind of Fortune 100 companies. He's very focused on digital transformation and has worked a long time in the industry, serving through a number of IT and digital leadership roles. So Stacy, welcome. And we've also got Fernando Cordoso. Fernando is a 10-year veteran at Trend Micro. He must have started when he was 8 years old, because when you see him, you're going to think he's still in his teenage years. But regardless, Fernando has been working on cloud technology, and with Trend Micro's Cloud One platform across kind of the globe, from Europe to Latin America to North America, with our various customers. So thousands of customers across the globe, really, in Cloud One. Fernando has a great published background as it relates to articles on Medium, articles that he publishes on his personal blog that are all tied to DevOps and tied to AWS. Carries a lot of certifications, multi-cloud certifications, not just AWS. But he and Stacy will be kind of going back and forth today to talk about misconfigurations and compliance, specifically in the FinTech space. So in addition to the expertise that's just broadly brought from the group, we also have a great set of expertise that's specific to FinTech, right, and FinOps. And that's really what we're going to be honing in on today. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to our presenters. I'll be coming back and forth. I'm going to go off camera a little bit because the microphone and the way Zoom kind of shows who's talking and who's making sound, sort of thing. But I'll be going back and forth and having a couple of questions and comments as we go through to try to moderate this. But I'll pass it over. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll take it over from here. Stacy.
All right, let me share my screen and make one adjustment here. Good afternoon, everyone. As Aaron mentioned, my name is Stacy Tucker. I am the practice lead for cloud security and public sector at Connect Consulting. And Connect Consulting specializes in helping customers use AWS and Trend Micro Cloud One to address misconfigurations and achieve assurance that their workloads are well architected and compliant and secure in the cloud. Aaron mentioned that we are a Trend Micro partner, and in that capacity, we also help customers to understand their risk and security posture by using Trend Micro Cloud One conformity. And as an AWS well-architected partner, we also help customers remediate that risk and implement security best practices aligned to the framework and their specific compliance objectives. So that's where we're going to really come together as an Amazon partner and a Trend Micro partner today to talk to you about how our cross-functional team specializes in this area and helps developers, information security and operations teams, and authorizing officials work together to define, align, and operationalize security controls in AWS as infrastructure as code automation, and managed services. And those three areas of focus are really the benefit of the AWS cloud from a compliance and regulatory perspective. Being able to do infrastructure as code, automation, and managed services with security built in by design. These are the benefits of the cloud that help support regulatory relief for financial institutions. Today, we're going to share more with you about these benefits and answer key questions about FinTech compliance, and then demonstrate how you can take advantage of the cloud by leveraging AWS and Trend Micro Cloud One to address regulatory guidance. So I'm going to begin with a brief discussion of the who, what, when, where, why, and how of FinTech regulatory compliance. So, who regulates FinTech's compliance? The Conference of State Bank Supervisors is the nationwide organization of banking and financial regulators from all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the US territories. State regulators supervise state-chartered banks and are the primary authority governing non-bank financial service providers. These are FinTechs, including mortgage providers, money service businesses, consumer finance companies, payday lenders, check cashers, and debt collection firms. So when referring to non-banks or the non-bank industry, what's happening here is we're talking about the financial institutions that are responsible for delivering products and services, either directly to customers or related to customers. So directly to consumers or related to consumers, and their use of those products and services, and are supervised or regulated by state non-bank financial regulators. So what does FinTech even mean? FinTech is shorthand for combining the words financial services and technology. And it's how this technology is driving innovation of financial services, which is at the center of FinTech. FinTechs primarily operate on the internet and in the cloud. And another description that really helps to simplify what FinTech is these are non-bank businesses that use technology to lend, hold, or move money. And this change in the industry is really challenging the marketplace. Cybersecurity is a new area where the focus on the risk is greater and driven by FinTech. And the Senior Legislative VP and Deputy General Counsel of the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, these are the regulators for FinTech, right? This is a description that was provided by that particular person on a webinar called Simply Stated. And if you operate solutions in the cloud or on the internet that are FinTech based, I highly recommend that you check out Simply Stated. So why are FinTechs regulated?
Stacy, just real quick, going back to your FinTech slide, when we're talking to customers and people in that space, we often hear them talk about cryptocurrencies and some of the more popular technologies that are there. Those are a good example for our audience of what you're thinking or what you're seeing when you think of that non-bank or non-bank businesses.
Yes, for sure. Again, any use of technology that is, the business has a technology that's being used to lend, hold, or move money, by which cryptocurrency would certainly apply. That is at the center of FinTech. So let's move on to why are FinTechs regulated? Money services businesses is a $1.4 trillion sector. And the regulators have data that show that 55% of all transactions in this space are FinTech based. We're talking about mortgage origination, which grew from 1/3 in 2013 to 2/3 of the 890 billion market in the mid 2019 time frame. And technology and innovation have enabled companies to scale geographically and enter new markets more quickly. All right, so we hear about how the cloud can be used to go global, how you can innovate quickly. This is really getting into concerns around moving large amounts of money across state lines and other geographic lines. In fact, there's a joint cloud statement, which we're going to talk more about, that really hones in on misconfigurations of cloud resources and cybersecurity concerns that are at the center of these transactions. So, where do you go to get guidance? The good news is that the CSBS, which is the regulator we spoke of earlier, the authoritative regulatory body, they are doing a good job of implementing a FinTech innovation contact in each state. So on this slide, there's 4 areas of focus that I wanna talk about. Namely, this FinTech innovation contact in your state, the Conference of State Bank Supervisors Cybersecurity 101 Resource Guide, the Federal Financial Institutions Examination Council's Joint Statement for Security in Cloud Computing Environments. So this is all of the organizations that work together to provide regulations coming together to put in place a statement around security in the cloud. And then the work that they've done to actually create a cybersecurity mapping document that NIST has reviewed and approved and supported, that assists in mapping the FinTech regulatory controls to NIST controls. So I've listed here Mr. Jed Bellman. He is the FinTech contact in my state. There are currently 24 contacts for 24 of the states in the United States of America. And like I said, CSBS is doing the work of getting a innovation contact in each state. So where you operate, you should definitely go to www.csbs.org/state innovation contacts and look up your person to assist with any guidance you may need around FinTech compliance. In 2006, the State Liaison Committee was added to the Federal Financial Institutions Council, Examinations Council. So the Examination Council was already there doing the work of federal regulations for banks. And in 2006, they added the State Liaison Committee, which included the state regulators of the CSBS. This is a community that's working together very tightly to ensure consistency across the regulatory requirements. And you really see that in this mapping of the FFIEC controls to NIST controls. So when are FinTechs regulated? Non-bank cybersecurity examinations occur on a risk base and a scheduled basis, typically every 3 to 5 years. So the way this works is, as a FinTech, you receive a letter that says your examination will take place using a questionnaire. There'll be a document request, and then you'll have a scheduled examination period. What's really interesting about this process is that, as I mentioned before, these regulatory requirements all align to the NIST cybersecurity framework. So the examination process is actually numbered specifically by the categories of the NIST cybersecurity framework. So identify all the way through to recover.
Stacy, who are the people that are doing the audits?
They are examinators, right? And you have to be certified to do that. You have to be educated to do it. You have to be certified to do it. And they function as a resource through the state regulatory supervision.
Is it the state body that's then sending the letter requiring the audit to be done?
The examiner, so the state provides these guidelines and these uniform approaches and forms and consistency and process and requirements, but the examiner will send you the letter.
Nice.
And then they will ask you, based on the questionnaire, things like, what's your PCI level? Do you have an authorizing official? Right? These are all questions that you would expect for a cybersecurity examination or any kind of compliance that aligns to financial services to begin with. And then they actually take the answers from those questions and use that to make decisions about the documents they will request. And then from there, you have your examination.
Do you know how long it takes, like for like a fintech to pass through this all process, Stacy?
Well, there's no one size fits all, right? So the NIST CSF isn't a one size fits all, but a very flexible, comprehensive framework. So it really depends on the organization's operating model, their scale, et cetera. All right, so how to do FinTech compliance in the cloud. And we're going to talk about AWS specifically today. And I want to highlight a few excerpts from the guidance provided by the joint statement, which really speaks to misconfigurations and security as key concerns, and then how that aligns to best-in-class capabilities in the cloud by AWS and Trend Micro. So it says management may consider leveraging a cloud computing standard and framework from industry standard setting organizations to assist in designing a secure cloud computing environment while considering risk. So this maps directly to the NIST cybersecurity framework, and the NIST cybersecurity framework aligns very nicely to the AWS well-architected framework, covering all 5 pillars of from operational excellence to cost optimization, where you have an enterprise architecture approach to risk reduction. The guidance also says management should consider implementing tools designed to detect security misconfigurations. This is where cloud conformity as an AWS technical partner provides solutions that align as well. They're very well fit to the NIST CSF. In fact, that particular tool will tell you, provide you a compliance scorecard based on the services you're using that is aligned to the NIST CSF and the AWS well-architected framework. And then the guidance speaks about misconfigurations of cloud resources is prevalent in cloud vulnerability and can be exploited to access cloud data and services. And this is where Trend Micro Cloud One provides an array of tools from application security to container security to file storage security, workload security, network security, and again, compliance for cloud, using cloud conformity that address these areas that I'm highlighting. So let's take a real world example from the well-architected framework and show how the FinTech regulatory compliance objectives do map very nicely to the NIST CSF framework, as well as the AWS well-architected framework, and then how you would do that in the cloud using Trend Micro Cloud One. So we're going to take security question number 6, and it says, how do you protect your compute workloads? Now, the description under the question is really honing in on EC2 instances, containers, Lambda functions, database services, IoT devices, and more. And it outlines 6 best practice areas to focus on, actually 7 best practice areas to focus on. Perform vulnerability management, reduce the attack surface, implement managed services, enable people to perform actions at a distance, automate compute protection, enforce and validate secure configurations, and validate software integrity. So there's quite a bit here that the guidance is saying, these are the best practices that you should do to ensure that you are actually protecting your compute workloads. So now let's look at specifically for EC2 instances, containers, Lambda functions, how this aligns to the controls objectives. And I want to go back to a statement from the Conference of State Bank Supervisors Cybersecurity 101 Resource Guide for Bank Executives, which highlights that your information security program will be shaped by your organization's unique needs and business processes. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. The NIST cybersecurity framework is a flexible, adaptable tool for organizing any information security program, regardless of size and resources. Although an institution will never be completely invulnerable, organizing your bank or non-bank cybersecurity program around the NIST CSF supports a comprehensive level of risk management. So what we're going to show you is how to do that. How to align, define, and operationalize the controls based on the NIST CSF. So again, going through the objectives of the well-architected framework, which aligns very nicely to NIST and FFIEC, how do we do this using Amazon's managed services and Trend Micro Cloud One capabilities? So for number 1 and number 2, automate compute resources and enable people to perform actions at a distance. AWS CloudFormation provides the ability for you to do infrastructure as code. And this infrastructure as code is how you declare your cloud resources, but it serves a number of purposes beyond just creating and deploying resources. It also provides you version control for your infrastructure. It provides a way for you to have auditable and repeatable, well-documented code that represents your infrastructure. And then AWS Code Pipeline allows you to use that infrastructure as code in a way where you can enable people to perform action at a distance, such that you write your code, you submit it to a repository, and that repository serves as the source for your pipeline. And in that pipeline, you can implement testing mechanisms using Cloud One conformity, where you can actually scan your templates to make sure that they are well architected before they go to the cloud as a deployment to begin with. When we look at reducing the attack surface, this is an area where, I'm going to go to perform vulnerability management next. So vulnerability management is all about the pipeline again and code inspection and testing and scanning against well-architected best practices. Additionally, vulnerability management for workload security is also about providing defense in depth for EC2 instances, containers, and Lambda functions, where Trend Micro Cloud One augments AWS's cloud native solutions to provide additional layers of capabilities to provide real-time vulnerability management, which we'll demonstrate more of shortly. So now let's looking at reducing the attack surface. This is all about establishing a secure baseline configuration for compute resources, and then ensuring the integrity of those compute resources through the life cycle of how they are implemented as virtualized capabilities. This is where you define and implement your hardening standards for EC2 and for containers and Lambda functions, and then use Trend Micro Cloud One workload security and application security capabilities to control the consistency of that baseline configuration. Next, we look at how do you validate software integrity? So this is all about implementing integrity checking mechanisms to verify your software, your firmware, and information integrity related to the data that you implement. So in AWS, there are some managed services that help you do this very effectively. KMS, Key Management Service, is one. ACM, which is the Certificate Management Service in AWS, is another. And a really nice tool that AWS launched not that long ago is AWS Signer, which you can use for code signing integrity, as a code signing integrity checking mechanism. And then equally, Micro Cloud One Workload and Application Security Solutions, again, will offer additional layers of protection to support these controls objectives. Lastly, we're going to look at implementing managed services. So each of the AWS services mentioned above, as well as the Trend Micro services, are managed services. And we're going to use these to mitigate disruptive cyber attacks and ensure availability is maintained. Things like DDoS protection and web application security attacks. We have some great solutions by Trend Micro and AWS to address those concerns. So an AWS WAF will help address OWASP top 10 concerns. AWS Shield and CloudFront support pushing those security threats to the edge and mitigating them away from your workloads to ensure greater availability. And equally, Trend Micro, again, Trend Micro Cloud One Application Security will provide additional layers above and beyond this that provide things like runtime application self-protection capabilities much closer to the workload. You know, where Amazon is pushing the threat away to the edge, those areas of focus that are still very close to the workload itself, Trend Micro covers you very effectively there. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Fernando to show us more about those Trend Micro Cloud One solutions.
Thank you so much, Stacy, for the explanation. I think it was very good, the granular details and all those kind of things. During the demo, like if you want to just jumping on and like give like a little bit more background information, feel free. Let me share my screen. And thank you so much, Aaron, early for the great introduction too. Appreciate it. What we would like to show here is like how the centralized platform that Stacy mentioned before, right, the Cloud One, could help you to achieve every single piece that we were talking before. Here is basically the platform where you can easily go and drive through to different like services. I'm just like going straight to one of the services where we can automatically and help you to build like one automated web architecture framework. After you connect your AWS account here, in less than 15 minutes, you'll be able to generate like multiple reports. One of those reports would be the AWS Web Architecture Framework. Another one could be NIST cybersecurity that was mentioned by Stacy, and also the NIST 853 in some cases, right? We also have the PCI DSS that can help like some financial services organizations. And it's pretty simple. Like after you scan your account, you can easily go to the view by standards and frameworks, and you can easily see the frameworks that you can choose here and starting generating those reports. Those reports can be generated like in PDF or CSV and can be exported for a better way to see it. Just going further in one of the areas that we were talking during this session here, SEC 6, right? It's like basically how do you protect your compute resources? It's pretty important, and we show in a very good details like which specific resources in your cloud environment are not following the best practice created by AWS. Plus, if you want to just like generate like a PCI DSS, they also do the same way, or NIST cybersecurity too. But one of the important points here, it is also the automation that Stacy mentioned, right? It is not just like you're looking for the issues or looking for the AWS Work Architecture Framework in the production environment, but also looking for the early stage. Basically, conformity can be applied in the pipeline with the AWS environment, right? Where you can add as the IDE plugin that you can scan every single time your CloudFormation templates before you push to production, or you can also integrate in your CI/CD pipeline. In AWS, will be integrated with AWS build, code build, and also AWS code pipeline. Those would be the technologies to integrate the template scanner in your regular pipeline. Just giving you one example how that works with a VS Code. Here's like my VS Code with like a very simple CloudFormation template, and I will just run conformity scan here. Oops, one sec, sorry about that. We scan like this CloudFormation template. And if you see, they are just running and something looks like wrong in my environment. Yeah, I think maybe I changed my API key. Sorry about that.
No problem, Fernando. While that's going on, the demo and the content that you're providing is a great example of what Stacy laid from a foundation standpoint. So, I think, while you're getting that going, this is a great working example of how Connect and Trend Micro empower one another to work to provide the answers really to the audit and the questionnaire that's being presented there.
Yeah, sorry, I think I changed my API key. I need to generate another one. I will do that further after. But if you have any specific question, I put everything in my GitHub where I have a little explanation about how to use the VS Code plugin created by Rafael. And it's pretty simple. I think I just generate multiple API keys and one of those was declined. But I can show after if you need or if you have any questions. Sorry about that. Going further to the second piece was mentioning by Stacy, right? Automated compute protection. One of the different ways that we can do that process, it is with the workload security. Imagine you're creating multiple EC2s and instance in AWS, right? You can easily automate the way how you deploy those agents. You can basically select the deployment script and you can select which specific operation systems you are going to protect, Linux, Windows, Solaris, or AIX. One of the cool points about us, it is our broad support for Linux, like CentOS, Red Hat, Amazon Linux, Oracle Linux, and so many others. And you can easily select those, what is the security profile that you want to apply for those machines, and they will automatically generate those deployment scripts for you. You can copy this and use a Puppet, Chef, Ansible, or any kind of automation infrastructure tool that you are using in your company. And every single time when you create a new instance, they will automatically push those agents for those instances. It's a very nice way to automate some process. We also have some integrations with AWS SSM and also AWS Distributor that you can easily push those agents using those system manager from AWS. If we go further in the performance vulnerability management, right? If you see workload security today, it is composed by 7 security modules, right? Anti-malware, web reputation, active monitoring, that is our EDR for servers, application control, integrity monitoring, log inspection, firewall, and intrusion prevention. And if we go to intrusion prevention, one of the very important pieces here, it is our, what we call virtual patching, right? And you can basically do the scan for recommendations. Every single time when we scan your server or your instance, we collect a metadata to understand which operation systems you are using, what is the hotfix that you have applied, what is the platforms that you are using, right, in those services. We collect those informations and we compare with like our vulnerability database. If we found that there is some possible vulnerabilities or some security flaws in the environment, we will grab those informations and we automatically push a virtual patching to protect in the network side those vulnerabilities in your EC2s or instance. Those are very important aspects from like a deep security that like so many customers like it, right? And this is scans for recommendations. You can schedule like a daily, weekly, or monthly. It's pretty interesting for so many companies. Reduce, and when we talk about like the virtual patching, right? One of the important aspects, it is being very we map it with like the CVEs. When we have the actual CVEs, there are some virtual patchings that we protect based on the MITRE or some other like researches that our team do like globally to protect the customers, right? But if you see today, the actual number is pretty high. Let's see if I can see all. Like we have like over 7,600 like IDS and IPS rules. Imagine if you need to apply this manually, that would be crazy, right? That's why we have this scan for recommendations to do this process automatically for you. Awesome. Moving to the next piece here, reduce attacks and surface. I think this is a nice way to show you like how we can reduce the attacks and surface, right? Because we are looking not just to one specific area, and we are not saying we are the silver bullet for protecting every single area, right? We have like the anti-malware protection, application control, firewall, IDS and IPS, and multiple layers that we can protect your EC2s. But also, when we talk about like a serverless, we can easily go to the application security and select like specifically protections for the serverless and microservices, where we can add a security layer or a security framework to your applications and actively monitoring every single request to your applications and block on the fly, right? We will basically be living inside your application. And if we see something malicious associated with like a malicious payloads or SQL injection or illegal file access, all those kind of things, we can block or just log those informations, depend what is the action that you select here in this case. Anything that you want to add, Stacey? Sorry if I'm jumping on from one to another.
Oh, this is great. This
Awesome.
is great. Yes.
Validate software integrity. This is very good point. Let me go back to workload security. In workload security, we have the integrity monitoring and application control, right? Those are two very important modules. First, integrity monitoring. We basically select a group of like monitoring files, folders, registries, and services inside Linux machines or Windows machines. And after we define what is the rules that we want to like be monitoring the integrity in the machines, we create what we call baseline, right? We created this baseline to understand those files in that specific moment. And if it's something change in the future, we can understand in real time, or we can scan the server with the scan integrity and like see which file was changed or which folder or services or like registries in the server was changed, to understand if the integrity from the server was compromised by like some attacks, right? This is a very important and aspect for like a PCI DSS compliance, for example, today. If we go a little bit further, when we talk about like application control, what we are doing here actually, it is, imagine you build all your server, you build your application, you are running those binaries, you are running the Python with Flask and all those kind of things, right? As a web server running Python with a Flask platform. Could be another platform, but just one example. In this case, we will create like a baseline that server. And if any of those applications, or if somebody tried to change the code that like binaries with Python, Java, all those kind of things, we will basically block if you define for us to block unrecognized software updates or chains, right? Basically what we are doing here is like, let's lock down the server until you basically request a maintenance mode, right? We have different ways to do maintenance mode. We have APIs that you can automate in your CI/CD pipeline, but you can also come here and say action, turn on maintenance mode, and say like, oh, I want a maintenance mode for my server for 15 minutes, for like 30 minutes or a couple of hours until I complete my windows of like changing and updating those applications in my servers, right? This is a nice way for you to lock down and don't allow anybody to change the platform, the operation systems, and all the binaries that you have in those services. Any questions? I don't know if I cannot see the chat. If there's no. Okay, and
No, we're good, Fernando. We don't have any chat questions.
Perfect.
So
Thank you, Aaron. And the last one, it is implement managed services, right? As Stacy mentioned, all our like platform today, Cloud One, it is all driven as a services. You can just select which specifically managed services you want to use in your applications, as the same when you are using management services by AWS, right? We also have a specific integration with AWS Managed Services, AMS, they call too, where we can deploy and help AWS teams with a workload security. Basically, they will request you to deploy the workload security for them to monitor the security in your EC2s. Okay, this is one of the partnerships that we have with AWS in the management services, and it's very well received for so many customers across the globe. I don't know if you have something to add to Stacy, but you also offer the managed services where you can help the customers the ability of managing AWS and Trend Micro Technologies, correct?
Yes, and when you look at the well-architected framework and you look at a controls framework and the objectives of it, Cloud One conformity, is really a very strong compliance bridge to get you from your controls objectives to how you do security in the cloud, and you understand, right, from your documentation about what you implemented, that you have assurance that you're actually secure. It fits very nicely with well-architected and with what we understand are the controls objectives for FinTech, right, from the FFIEC aligned to NIST CSF. But even for PCI, you can check your workloads against how you're using services for PCI with conformity.
Right.
And then again, moving into where you're actually operating with an EC2 instance or a Lambda function or containers, having these additional tools to protect you in real time as you're running your applications. It's very powerful stuff. Actually, is it possible for you to talk a little bit more briefly about the Lambda layer and how application security covers you there?
Basically what happens, it is application security works as a RASP technology, right? Runtime application self-protect. And for you to implement, if you are using containers, you basically inject or just import one specific line of code, as like this example here. Sec. Let's see if I have you. Yeah, I have one. Remove this. In my case here, sorry. In my case here, I have like a Java application, right? And what I'm doing here, just importing like our framework, security framework to the container, to the Docker file to generate the container image. And before I run my MoneyX application, right, I'm basically make an invocation to say like, oh, please start the Trend Micro library first before you start the actual application. And in this specific case, you are basically monitoring every single request right after you starting running those applications. The same happens for like a serverless like Lambda, right? We have a security layer that you can basically add to your Lambda function. And after you connect that in the AWS portal or through AWS CLI, you can easily start monitoring all those requests. After one request happens to your application, right? They start showing here how many invocations, how many attacks we detect, what is those attacks. I have a couple examples here where I was like just testing one specific action with like a SQL injection, right? What I was trying to do basically in the login form, I was trying to pass always true type of like attack, right? And because it was basically using the EXA format, they recognize those EXA format to don't affect the SQL database and bypass the logging process. And basically, we were able to log on the fly. This happens depending which kind of like a security profile you are using, but it's basically just adding like a security layer in your Lambda function. And you can automate all this process, right? You can use CloudFormation templates and easily automate the deployment across multiple Lambda functions.
That's the really powerful part for serverless architectures.
Right, for sure.
And then again, having cloud conformity scan your templates to ensure that those security mechanisms are there to protect against high risk to begin with.
Right.
Yes.
And you can also scan the template scanner using the format that it didn't work in my case here because of the APIs, but in conformity, you can also go to what we call template scanner on the top right, and you can start scanning your CloudFormation templates, right? The template scanner can work directly in the console, like this way here, or you can also use in the IDE or in the CI/CD pipeline, basically.
Excellent.
Okay. I hope we cover all the main areas, right? I think.
Yeah, I think you did. I think this gives a good example of the process and the technologies that fintechs and FinOps teams can use. So partnering with the people and the resources to help man the technology as well as the experts that can help you interpret the results and look at the data. So hopefully everyone that's on here had a good outcome and got a lot of nice information out of the discussion. I know this is being recorded, so if you have questions or comments after watching the recording, please follow up with the information that's posted down below. We thank you all for your time, and if you have further questions for Stacy or Fernando, we'd be glad to answer them now. But so far, the chat's been relatively quiet. I think my camera just froze, so perhaps it's a good time to end the discussion when your camera gets tired of being on Zoom all day. Thanks so much, Stacy, Fernando, Yvonne, Andrea, Brittany, for putting this together. We certainly appreciate it, and hope everyone's well, safe, and take care.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.